Let's talk a little bit about positional principles in this video. I've made this video specifically for people who are beginners. So let's say in this example right here that that white makes a mistake. Right now we add to our positional principles, and let me just beforehand even clarify what positional principles are. Positional principles are principles that are supposed to be activated in every single position in chess, in every game and in every attack event that we're having in chess, because there's two ways to win a chess game. The first one is when you're having a superior position and you're materializing on that advantage, and materialize, you move into winning end game because of the material advantage. The second one is where you have a very successful attack, but that is very rare to happen. So let's say in this example, which is the more common one, where we're activating our positional principles, white makes the mistake, bishop to h4. In here, we have our first principle that we have, which is material. Even if it's a small material gain, this small material gain is going to help us to gain more space and to control more squares overall. So let's say, for example, moved away from that board, okay, for a short example, let's say we have two pawns, okay, right here, and a pawn right here. Even better is, I think, if we make the example in here. These two pawns aim at 1, 2, 3, 4 squares. That is quite obvious. This controls 2. And so which side do we want to be? Do we want to be white, which has 2 more squares, or do we want to be black? It's just a pawn, but it makes quite the difference overall. And so obviously we want to be white. And so this is the first principle. Even if it's a small material gain, sometimes it's actually worth to utilize it and to take the material because that will give us one better endgame odds. So it's going to make our position slightly more active in comparison to our opponent. And in here, bishop to h4 allows us quite a tiny tactic where we can actually take on g4. So if the knight takes here on g4, he's not going to take, because then we'll take this bishop and will be absolutely better. He's not going to do it. Instead, he's going to take here, okay, threatening our queen. We're going to take here to threaten his queen as well. Okay, and we're going to win the f2 pawn, okay? Because we're going to threaten here, he's going to threaten on the queen on the 8. It's going to be better for us, which is actually what happened. So it was bishop takes on e7, knight takes on f2, which we've just talked about, okay, aiming at the 2 queens. Now they're doing what we've just talked about, they trade queens, okay, which is the material principle that we've just talked about, where we want to have as much more material advantage as possible, even if it's just one pawn. The f2 pawn, it's critical because this gives us large endgame odds. It says that we are a lot better, and that is one of these reasons. Now, let's say that white makes another mistake following this, and it does the move knight takes on d1. Knight takes on d1, which is a clear mistake. Now we can see that black is actually winning, and this touches the second principle that we have. We want not just our pawns, not just to have like a pawn advantage or a material advantage, which if you're wondering, you could obviously always take here. But we do not just want to be in a pawn advantage. We also want our pieces to control as many squares as possible. This is very, very crucial for a chess game, and especially to have like not just fine positions, but positions that are better than our opponents. This is crucial because in what white does is think about it this way, he makes his own pieces worse. Do we want to be in white's place in this example? Obviously no, because what he's going to do is he does actually the right move. He does a takes on d8, he takes on the rook. Probably he was better according to the computer, but honestly it's also fine. A takes d8, and now we see black has one active rook. The 2 of his pieces are developed. He could also always move with this knight to open the diagonal for the bishop, and your pieces sit on the back rank. They're not doing much. And so the second principle that we want to apply for most of our chess games, what we want is our pieces to be the most active. Now we have the second principle of activity, where we want our pieces to be the most active as they possibly can be. So if I'm here and I would have played as white, I would have probably been thinking maybe I should do the move bishop to c7, because now first of all I retain my bishop here. Okay, this is one thing, and the second thing is he threatens this pawn, so it might have a diagonal to go back to afterwards. So after the knight takes and the pawn takes here, this bishop will have a place to return to, maybe, just maybe. not so sure, however. So let me just show you this in action. Knight takes on d1, bishop to c7, knight takes on c3, b takes c3, and now c4. Okay, he's trying to progress with his pawns, probably, or something like that. But you're doing as white, bishop takes on d6. And now you may not be winning. Okay, obviously it's not a winning position, but you're not completely lost in this position. You're having a pawn disadvantage, but it's not as bad as beforehand. In here after knight takes on d1, white is completely winning. Black is completely winning. In here, black is only slightly better. So that's the difference. And it comes from the second principle. One, we had material, and the second one, which is we want to activate our least active. In this case, it was the white bishop. This is in very, very simple. And again, for beginner players, the principles of activity. They are the principles that we need to follow in a chess game after the opening. So after we have castled, we want to basically think, okay, what is my least active piece? How do I make it more active? And how do I win like a pawn advantage or a piece? Obviously, if they blunder something, you take, no questions. But in cases where they do not blunder, which is what can happen, we are going to think in these terms of what is my least active piece and how do I make it more active. You're going to notice that a lot of times players are going to make moves like h3, like here, for no apparent reason. Computer says it's fine, but you can still see it gives slowly an advantage for black. But these moves, they are also allowing you to use your positional principles and the ideas that we've talked about in this video of making your pieces a lot more active, because you can see this makes, what is this move? It's not going to actually do much. If you're going here to attack, okay, I'm just going to defend with myself, but continue. You've wasted time doing this. I just defended. And so that's, in simple terms, the ideas of activity and the positional principles, which also leads me to another thing, that in chess, what we want to do is we want to think more principle-based than just increasing a lot our knowledge. Why is that? Because if we think in principles, this makes our play a lot more independent for various situations that we have no idea what to do in. So for example, in a position like this, where they're making like weird moves like that, positional principles and principle-based play could help, especially if you have no idea how to deal with these types of positions. So that's it for this short video. If you have any questions, leave them down below. And remember, from a snippet of a game, you have managed to build on positional principles. That is how important they are to our overall play, because it's a small thing, but it makes a massive difference at the end of our play. So if you want, you can consider the first link in the description, and I will teach you to 1500 ELO online myself. And if you want, you can leave a subscribe, okay, and I'll show you another more snippets of chess lessons like this one. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.